Senator, that's well disclosed in our proxy documents in each of the years that I've been employed.
Yeah, but what is it?
It's a big number, sir.
Notice how he doesn't
Well,
want to say.
let me help you out. It's 32.8 million this year. Does that sound right?
Yes, it does.
Oh my God.
That's a 45% increase over last year. Does that sound right?
45%.
Yes, it does.
What is it?
Roses are red, violets are blue. CEOs make money, and they probably make more than you. And yes, that did take like 10 minutes for me to think up. Embarrassing, but we're not going to talk about it. So CEOs, yes, they make money, but we're going to deep dive today into how much money they're making and the justifications for it. So I think you're really going to enjoy this. I found it very insightful, and I hope you find value in this. And if you do, like the video and subscribe so I can keep bringing this to you. Now, I'm split down the middle when it comes to CEO pay because I'm both an employee and a business owner. So I understand both sides, while some people might only understand one. In order to talk about issues, we do need to understand both sides of the story. And on one hand, I can understand if you're running a company morally well, keyword there, and everybody's profiting reasonably, then I can understand the CEO is making a large salary. However, that large salary shouldn't exceed X amount of times over the average employees, in my opinion, without some other justification for it. Now, on the other side, if you're making 20, 30, 50, 100 times your average salary of your employees, and your employees over the course of many years aren't even getting bumps that account for inflation, that to me is an issue, right? Because as inflation goes up, if your employees don't get a raise, they're going to end up actually losing money working for you. And again, that comes with caveats, right? Because you might not necessarily be able to raise your prices, and that's a sticking point. We're going to kind of dive into that today. So stick around, and at the end of the video, we're actually going to go over some comments from you guys from the previous video. So if you do want to be featured in the next video, go ahead and leave your comments down below, because I love sharing your guys' thoughts with everyone else. I really do feel like it helps build the community that we are doing here. So without further ado, let's get into it.
22-year-old CEO of a business that's been running for about almost a year. And I promise, making money is so much fun and it feels great, but just wait until you see all the money that leaves just because of expenses and other things. So for monthly retainers, we did 6,500. This was spread across 4 companies.
Okay, not too bad.
Store sales, which is our online e-commerce store, was 3,780 and 42 cents. Our workshops, to where we host classrooms, we teach people how to edit and how to reach out to companies, that was just $1,200 flat. With our affiliate links across all of our UGC creations, it was $364 and 19 cents, so a total of $11,844.61 cents.
So those are relatively rookie numbers, right? This is obviously a smaller business, but I'm giving you this context because this is gonna apply at scale, right? The larger your company is, the more you're going to spend on these things, and the more they add up, and it's important for later on. So stay tuned.
And honestly, this number is huge for us. Like, I know it's starting small, but we're young, and we get to build off of this. And I only have 2 employees that work for me, so we have a very small team. But unfortunately, all this money sounds great month to month. But there's one part freelancers don't really often talk about, and it's net 30s and net 60s. Like, I won't probably see any of this money until December.
Now, what he means by net 30s and net 60s? There's going to be a delay in when they get paid. 30 days, 60 days typically. And that's one thing that people often misunderstand. Even for something like YouTube, for example. YouTube typically pays out in a month's schedule. And you have to wait until the next month to get your income. And so a lot of times what happens is, maybe not necessarily with YouTube, but for others, like for example, my own bonus structure, it was 2 months behind, right? We made the money in the month of January, let's say, right? But then I didn't get paid until March. So you have to make sure that if you're running a small company with smaller cash flow, that you account for the fact that you might render services at a certain date, but you might not be getting paid until 60 days later, but your employees still have to be paid. Your light bill still has to be paid.
Even maybe January if it's on a net 60. Like, I swear companies that said net 30s and net 60s literally wait till the last day they possibly can to pay you. Because brands pay slow, which means the agencies you're working for also pay slow.
Correct.
That's just something, before getting into the UGC and freelance industry, you have to understand that these payments are going to be late, and you're going to have a backup when you really need it. So that was revenue, and let's now talk about what actually drains me, which is my expenses. But for ads and testing on Meta and TikTok, we spend $1,450.
Now, that's actually not a lot of money for ads. It may sound like a lot of money for ads, but again, it's a small business. I mean, $1,500 for a small business. I mean, I guess in comparison to percentage-wise, if they revenued 11,000, they're spending over 10% of their revenue on ads, which is definitely eating into the profit. But as we're small, we need to spend money on ads to grow, especially depending on what kind of industry that you're in. If no one knows your name, you can't sell your services. So in the beginning, especially, you're going to be spending a larger chunk of your revenue on ads than you probably might want to. And then as you get more established, word of mouth starts to travel, and you can kind of tune down the total percentage that you're spending of your revenue on ads, or maybe you'll double down and try and grow your business. These are the choices that you have to make.
Software, this is just all of our subscriptions, all of our editing platforms. That was $263.41. Contracting editor fees, which is just my employees, is $900 each, so that's $1,800. So the money I said on the revenue, that all goes to me. I pay them $900 a month because they don't do a lot of work. They help me with tasks that I need to do.
That's still a decent chunk for a small business.
$2,280.55. This is for renting studios, renting equipment if we needed it, etc. All the stuff you need to do to make the videos look the best. Shipping and returns, sometimes you get products that you unfortunately can't keep. So shipping that out was $412.08. Rent for my personal studio that I live in, and also the studio we sometimes rent to shoot in, was $1,800 flat. And then taxes set aside, I had $1,184.46.
Yes, taxes. That is another thing. The tax code is full of not necessarily loopholes, but legal opportunities for people and businesses to basically shelter their money from the government, if you will. And these are important. They're written in the tax code for a reason. But taxes for small businesses typically tend to hurt because you have to pay both your portion and the employer's portion because you don't have an employer. You are both the owner. So you have to pay the full percentage of Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and all these things. And that's going to eat into a lot of your profit.
Which a grand total of total expenses is $8,290.50. And I know you just heard that. Like, I myself am making $3,000
correct,
just off of my business. I do other things on the side.
So I think that gives us enough from him to understand kind of the thought process and the distribution of expenses when it comes to running a company. And this was very important as we go on and look at these different examples on how this applies at scale. Because again, the larger your company is, the more revenue, but also the higher your expenses go.
4 times more money than the average worker at the same company. We're supposed to be talking about CEO pay being too high, because I was looking into, I did look into it, but I saw a story that came out the other day just talking about CEO pay in America. We know this has been a big story for many years, ever since this concept of a living wage, quote unquote, has been an item. And ever since people have started to make noise about how much money CEOs earn at companies as opposed to the workers who work at those same companies. Now the focus has shifted to the CEOs and the C-suites and the people, the CEOs and the owners of companies, how much money they're making, how much money they allegedly have, as opposed to how much money the people who work for them have, as if they're being done wrong by their bosses or by their employers. So anyway, S&P 500, the average CEO salary is $16.7 million in 2024. So the average worker at these same companies, where the CEO is earning $16.7 million. Anybody want to guess what the average worker earns at the same companies in the S&P 500? What's the average worker earning? Carolyn said 50K. Number's 51,000. 50.
See? So we have a disparity here. We have 16 million versus an average of 50,000. This is what I was talking about earlier, right? The question is it fair? And the answer is probably not, right? Because that's such a large disparity. But again, when you're a publicly traded company, your job is to please the shareholders. And sometimes investing in the shareholders and furthering those goals can sometimes leave employee raises in the dust. And this is where, again, I'm split, because it's very important that we obviously maintain our shareholders' expectations as a company. We have to do that, or the CEO gets removed. That's literally the consequence. If you're a CEO and you're not providing value to the shareholders, you get removed. So there's enormous pressure on their end to make sure that they perform. And a lot of times their salaries are tied in to performance goals, right? Let's say the CEO promises to raise revenue by 30%, right? That 30% is going to be tied to a salary raise. And a lot of times that's going to be quite expensive depending on how much that 30% is. Are they a $1 billion company, right? Are they $1 million company? It matters. And this is part of what they negotiate as their executive package. And negotiation, as we're going to see later on, actually from Warren Buffett, does play a very, very critical role in what these guys are making. And there's one thing that you guys absolutely must remember. Your salary is not just a factor of your skill set. It is a factor of what you can negotiate. And some of us out there need to be better negotiators. So keep that in mind. Your value is not just what you provide at the job, it's also how well you can negotiate your salary.
1,000. Now, if you do the math on that, that's 324 times the salary. That means the CEO earns 324 times more money than the average worker at the same company. 40 years ago, that same ratio was 20 to 1. Now it's 324 to 1. I don't agree with their approach, but if I was advising them, I say this is a very strong point. They should be using an argument for why the people at the top, the oligarchs, using Bernie Sanders language, the oligarchs are controlling everything and they're just pressing down on the peasants. Because it used to be a CEO earned 20 times as much as their employees. Now they earn 324 times as much as their employees.
Ever wonder how
So let me expand on that a little bit. The use of peasants, I mean, yeah, I'm sure some companies are that way. The company that I work for, and I'm not going to disclose that, not necessarily that I'm hiding it. I just don't feel it's appropriate. For those of you that might know me, then you'll know. But I've always been very, very pleased with our CEO. And I'm not just saying that, I really have. I remember the first time I met him, he actually took the time when our company was acquired to sit down with each person that was at that meeting and ask us specific questions, and he took the time to write it down, which showed me that he cared. Now, I understand that everybody's not going to be so lucky. We are a very large organization. Okay, we're talking above 1,000, and we are a $1 billion company in revenue. So what that means is that company, I think, is a good example of something that is positive. And that's always what they strive to be. And that's why I enjoy working there, because they are always striving to value their people and provide better services to their clients. And I'm about that. I think it's great. But everybody's not going to be so lucky. And more to the point, when we take a look at stuff like this, I don't feel like a peasant in this example. I do feel valued. I can email the CEO directly and he will respond directly to me. Now, again, everyone's not going to have that. And I would be curious to know in the comments below, are you guys able to go all the way up to your C-suite, send an email and say, hey, look, I want your advice on this. I want your input on this. And let me know, would they listen?
much the typical CEO makes? Well, what if we told you the median pay hit $16.3 million in 2020?
So this is a good corollary. These are the exact same numbers. So it's not just a fluke, and it's not just one person's opinion.
That's nearly 200 times a typical worker's salary, according to a report. So let's break it down. A lot is based on how well their company does, with stock awards making up about 70% of their total compensation packages.
It's a lot.
Their pay is usually decided by shareholders and company boards who have tried to keep executives from quitting. The CEO pay has increased by 1,209% since 1978.
1,209% since 1978. Now, we are currently, almost 40 years beyond that now. So, I mean, that is a lot. You know, if we break that down, what is that, an average of, I don't even know. I'm not going to try to do the math in my head. It's too early. It's a lot. It's probably like 30% or so. You can correct me in the comments below. But yeah, that's quite a bit. And the average salary is definitely not increasing that much for workers.
Compared to 15% for the typical worker, according to the Economic Policy Institute. But why haven't typical workers' salaries increased just as fast? Well, according to one expert, it's for different reasons, like high unemployment, globalization, the decrease of unions, low labor standards, and shifting to a workforce of freelancers.
But CEO.
Okay, so globalization. I'm actually going to bring this up to the internet. I want you guys to actually read the definition for globalization. It's defined as the stretching of economic, political, and social relationships in space and time. Thank you, Britannica. That's actually a little bit obtuse, but to break that down for you, it basically means how we interact as a people, right? The stretching of economic, political, and social relationships, how we interact as a species. And as we've developed from the 18th century to the 21st century, we have I mean, it's more than night and day, right? We have commerce, we have trade, we have the internet. So globalization makes things easier, but it also makes things easier to hide. We have the internet, all this kind of good stuff. So this plays a role in how we interact as a society, and it is an important point. But we have to remember that as we grow and adapt, we have to make sure that the general public and the people that work with us and for us are not being completely left in the dust, because once a certain group feels that there's no more hope, history tells us that that group, when it becomes large enough, revolts and overthrows the main group. So we don't want that. I want everybody to be safe. I don't want any revolutions. So we do need to make sure that people's thoughts and opinions are heard, and that pay structure is justifiable in a way that's pleasing to generally everybody. We're never going to make everybody happy, but we do need to try to make the majority of people happy.
Those, as a group, would be being paid a lot less money if proxy statements hadn't revealed how much other people were getting paid. It is only human to look at a whole bunch of proxy statements and say, well, I'm worth more than that guy, and negotiate that way, and a comp committee is going to respond to that. So
like I said earlier, you are a factor of your negotiation skills. And just for a correlation, I'm going to read this from the internet as well. Proxy statement is a document that public companies are required to file with securities, SEC, and stuff like that, that basically determines, or not determines rather, but it provides shareholders with the information they need about the matters that we voted on during the meeting, and they can list a whole bunch of information in those statements. And that's what Warren Buffett is referring to. Now, if we take a look at what he just said, he said that we pay a lot less. All right, because as soon as you know what everybody's being paid, you start to wonder, well, why are they being paid? Where's my value? And that's part of the reason why most companies discourage you disclosing your salary. And people are going to talk. I'm guilty of this myself. We like to talk. We like to know. We're human. That's just how we are. But I think the biggest issue with this personally is when it comes to new employees, right? Because if you're an older employee, you started at a time when perhaps the starting salary was, let's say it's $50,000, right? It's 5 years later. You've put 5 years of hard work and dedication, and let's say you got 2.5% raises every year. 2.5% of 50,000 is $2,500, right? Multiply that by 5 years, and that's going to be $12,500. So you're now making, let's say you're making $62,500 in this example, but it's 5 years down the road. Inflation's maybe it's hit pretty hard, and new employees are now being hired at $68,000 with less experience than you. Do you see how this can get frustrating? So you've put in your 5 years, you're making $62,500. The new employee just out of college is making $68,000, maybe $70,000 a year. And you're sitting there like, well, what am I doing here? And that's how we get in this cat and mouse game of people. And I see it all the time in the construction industry. They hop from employer to employer to get an extra $5,000. And yes, technically speaking, that is the best way to make more money, is to job hop. However, it crushes your seniority, which can be very useful in things like economic compressions, where people get laid off or fired. You are much more likely as a new employee to go bye-bye. And also, as a caveat, the more money you make and the newer you are, you're twice as likely to go bye-bye, because you are new and you are not cheap. And one more fact that a lot of people don't understand is multiply your salary times about 25%. That's how much the employer is costing to retain you, in paying 6% for Medicare and Medicaid, in paying for things like probably 401ks, depending on the matches, in things like matches for health insurance, and things like workers' compensation insurance. So if you make $100,000, they're probably paying $125,000, $130,000 just to keep you. So keep that in mind.
So American shareholders are paying a significant price for the fact that they get to look at that proxy statement every year and see how much those top 5 officers are earning. Charlie?
Well, in a spirit of transparency, you're asking for something that wouldn't be good for the shareholders. And it's not going to happen unless the SEC makes it happen. We're way better off without adding to the culture of envy in America.
It won't happen unless it's made to happen. Nothing more to say.
Dollars in profits. And your CEO, Tom Wilson, last year was paid $26 million. Now, Miss Miguel can't get her claim paid out, but Tom Wilson, whoever the heck he is, gets $26 million. I mean, that's really extraordinary. Do you just
I
not,
love
do you
this
not
guy.
have the money to pay people like Ms. Miguel? Why is she not a priority, but Tom Wilson's salary is?
$26 million, and they can't pay a single claim. So let's expand upon that because they didn't say what the claim was. And Google may not even tell me, but let's say average Allstate claim, around 119,754, right? Which, if we take by that math, that's 10% of a million. So that's 1% of 10 million. So that's, it's probably less than 1% of his total salary. Now, again, that's just the CEO. We don't know what the rest of the C-suite is making, so we can assume that it's we'll just say 50 million just for fun, right? But again, that's a huge number, and insurance makes their money on, and they bank on the fact that you don't make claims, and that's why the insurance can be considered a scam in a lot of areas, especially health insurance. I completely get where people are coming from, right? Because we pay for things we never use, and then when we finally use it, we can't get our money. Sucks, right? But that is absolutely bananas. So if it was just 119,000, there's no reason why they couldn't pay off that claim, unless they're just absolutely spending every single penny they make and making bad financial choices.
Senator, that's well disclosed in our proxy documents in each of the years that I've been employed.
Yeah, but what is it?
It's a big number, sir.
Notice how he doesn't
Well,
want to say.
let me help you out. It's 32.8 million this year. Does that sound right?
Yes, it does.
Oh my God.
That's a 45% increase over last year. Does that sound right?
45%.
Yes, it does.
What is it you get paid to do exactly?
I get paid to run the Boeing company.
Yeah. So just help me understand that. I mean, do you get
I get paid to run the Boeing company, bro. But what does that mean?
paid for transparency? Is that one of the metrics for your income?
I think the board counts on me for transparency.
Really?
Yeah, I bet
Because
they
you're
do.
under investigation for falsifying 787 inspection records. The Boeing's under criminal investigation for the Alaska Airlines flight. You were investigated by DOJ for criminal conspiracy to defraud the FAA. This is all in your tenure. This doesn't sound like a lot of transparency to me. I think
So this just goes to show things work until they don't, and when things start going downhill, you start, having accidents. I think the Alaska Airlines flight, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, was from when the Delta flight door blew open in flight. The cabin door blew open. I don't think it was hurt, but yeah, I think it blew open. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, that's a serious offense, right? And it goes back to aircraft manufacturers. What are their safety practices? And when things start getting investigated and things are found off, and then we start looking into, hey, what are people paid? Maybe the workers weren't being paid enough. Maybe they're tired or overworked. It's like, well, why are they overworked? Why are they tired? You know what I mean? The stuff starts to come out, and this guy has basically nothing impactful to say.
I think the truth is, Mr. Calhoun, you're not focused on safety. You're not focused on quality. You're not focused on transparency. All of this is in the record, but I think actually you're focused on exactly what you were hired to do, which is that you're cutting corners. You are eliminating safety procedures.
Yep.
You are sticking it to your employees. You are cutting back jobs because you're trying to squeeze every piece of profit you can out of this country. This company. You're strip mining it. You're strip mining Boeing. It was one of the greatest American companies ever. It has employed thousands of people in my state, and you are strip mining it for profit, shareholder value, and you're being rewarded for it. You got a huge raise, a huge increase. So it's working out great for you. For the American people, they're in danger. For your workers, they're in peril. For your whistleblowers, they literally fear for their lives, but you're getting compensated like never before. If anybody's coming out of this deal good, it's you. Why haven't you resigned?
Senator, I'm sticking this through. I'm proud of having taken the job. I'm proud of our
Proud of this
safety record, and I am
You're proud of
very
this safety
proud
record?
of our Boeing people.
You're proud of this safety record.
I think that's just an example of this classic gaslighting. I mean, if he truly believes this, I would like to know why he's proud of the safety record. I mean, yes, if you have 100,000 things that go wrong and only one thing that goes, 100,000 things that go right and only one thing that goes wrong, technically speaking, that's a good record. But if that one thing that goes wrong takes lives, it's a problem.
I am proud of every action we have taken.
Every action you've taken?
Yes, sir.
Wow. There's some news for you.
But I think that just really, really highlights the complete disparity in some companies. And again, some are going to be worse than others. But before we wrap up, we are going to go over some comments from the last video. I wanted to give a shout out to Turtle3000, who, when we're talking about bonuses, said that he'd actually been at his company for 15 years and never had any bonuses until last year. $100 last year and $100 this year, with $200 in bonuses in 15 years. And he's brought in new businesses over the years. He said the dude here for 3 years is getting the same bonuses I'm getting, which ties into what I said before. So Turtle, I hope you have a much better year next year. I'm so sorry, my dude. But I'm proud of you for sticking it out. And then With Love, Trizzy came at 19,000, just to show you the disparity between jobs and demographics here. 19,000. Can't wait to cash into January for tax purposes. However, it feels good knowing that there we can splurge for Christmas. So that individual is very happy, and the taxes are going to hit hard, 30%. That's why they're waiting for the first. It's probably a good idea, especially with the cash bonus. So smart thinking for them. And the last one to call out, Cat made Twalunk Songs Games 3116. Probably butchered that. My bad. Xmas is dead. The Grinch stole your Christmas, and I'm really sorry. But next Christmas, you're getting a bonus 1,000%. I believe it.